Hi, welcome to Tech Talk video number 8, the clays of our studio. As you can see, we have a lot of different clay types in our studio. From the porcelains that you can see here, Coleman, English, and Nara, to the white clays, the white stonewares, B-Mix Cone 10, B-Mix with Grog, Stony White, and Granite, to the darker clays. We have Salmagundi, which is our new homemade clay. We have Rod's Bod, Long Beach, Soldate 60, Fat Red, and finally Dark Brown. Each one have their own unique characteristics, and I'll be talking to you about them and what each clay is good for and what you can do with them in the studio that will make them come out to be their best.
Let's start with the porcelains. A traditional porcelain is actually just a glass-like clay body with very low iron oxide content, the reddish brown that you see in other clays. The whitest and most translucent porcelains are made using the most expensive and cleanest materials, meaning very low iron content. In our studio, English and Coleman porcelains are the ones that fit this bill and cost over twice as much as Nara. Besides the whiteness of the clay, porcelains have other unique characteristics versus our other clays. First is shrinkage. Our porcelains will shrink between 13.5% and 15%, higher than our other stonewares. Why are they on the higher end? Porcelain is made from much finer particle clay materials. When the water dries out of the clay, the smaller particles can fit tighter together versus the larger particles. As a result, you need to be careful while drying, as warping and cracking have a higher likelihood to occur with that tighter particle fit versus stoneware. So let it dry slowly. In this case, Nara tends to crack a little less, as it is on the lower end of the shrinkage range for porcelains. A benefit of this denser pack is that the porcelains tend to be harder and stronger once fired versus other clays, giving the owner excellent long-term durability without chips and cracks. Second, there's glaze fit. Glazes are formulated to shrink just like clay bodies. That glaze shrinkage allows them to fit on the clay body without breaking the clay or cracking the glaze, called shivering or crazing. For the strongest and least breakable pottery, you want a glaze that neither shivers nor crazes. But you'll notice that some of our glazes craze. That cracking is caused by the glaze and the clay shrinking at slightly different rates. For our studio clays, we have a range of shrink rates. The glaze test tiles in the video were all fired using the same clay, so you can see the different glaze shrinkage rates play out. You can see similar effects by using one glaze and different clay bodies. Lastly, porcelain clays will provide a lighter and brighter glaze color compared to darker stoneware clays. The primary reason for this is the lack of iron and grog in porcelain. Iron, in general, tends to add a reddish-brown hue to the clay body, as you can see from the test tiles at the very beginning of this video. Grog adds the black speckles in various sizes. Iron in clay will at times cause the clay to react differently, adding usually a darker or muted effect. Changing a firing from oxidation to reduction enhances those effects a bit more. Porcelain is free from both and hence enhances whiteness. Every glaze we have is different, and our studio glaze test tiles are great for showing you how glazes look on non-iron clays as well as high iron clays in both oxidation and reduction. In this last test tile, teal, you can see how the iron body slightly changes both the brightness and the color itself for both firings. Stoneware, which we are going to define here as any studio clay that is not porcelain. Our whitest stoneware clays are B-mix and B-mix with grog. These clays are in essence a cross between porcelain and true stoneware. Adding materials have eased the warpage and cracking issues as compared to porcelain. Grog adds a light black speckling and structural stability, which is good for hand building and sculpture. It's slightly warmer in color when fired compared to porcelain. You can throw large more easily, and it's one of our starter clays for new potters. Next is Stony White and Granite, both wonderful gray clays. Both clays have some porcelain characteristics in how they feel when throwing, very smooth and plastic. A significant difference is the likely addition of fine mesh grog and a bit of iron, which causes the clay to go grayish upon firing, especially in reduction, where the gray is significantly deeper in hue. Our next group of clays are our more iron-rich stonewares. These stonewares have a varying amount of iron in them, from the lighter side Salmagundi to the iron-rich dark brown. The unique characteristic of these clays is that in a reduction firing, the oxide in iron oxide is literally pulled from the clay, deepening the clay body color greatly. Salmagundi is made from wet and dry trimmings of all our studio clays. It's a clay low in iron and light tan in color when fired. Next up, Rodsbod, the best structural clay for the sculpture we have in the studio. It's loaded with grog and it fires into a golden brown with distinctive speckling. It's sturdy and you can build big. Long Beach is an excellent all-around clay. Not so groggy as Rodsbod, but just a little bit darker in color. Great with reduction glazes. Next up, Soldate 60. This 60 mesh grog clay works well with hand building and sculpture, in addition to the wheel. It's a little bit more grog than Long Beach and a tiny bit less iron. You can build big with this clay for sure. For our darkest stonewares, we have Fat Red and Dark Brown. Each are iron rich and will go very deep in color, both in clay body and glaze when fired in reduction. Both are excellent chinos. One interesting effect is that these iron-rich clays can take certain glazes and drive them increasingly translucent to near clear with only flecks of color. Coming up here, we have some great examples using Patsy's green glaze. As the clay moves from B-mix, as you can see right here, to Long Beach, and then finally to dark brown, we have a complete transformation of the glaze from being much more opaque to much more translucent. Plus, you can see how the color changes from the green to red to, in essence, clear. Now that you've gotten an intro into our studio clays, it's time to start using them. I highly encourage trying the different types, from porcelain to grog clays to high irons, especially if you're relatively new to clay. The unique characteristics of each clay help to develop your overall skills as a potter, whether it's throwing, hand building, or sculpture. Fire the clays you use in oxidation as well as reduction and learn the different types of environments impact your designs. Lastly, there's so much more to learn about clays that can be shown in a short video. I heartily recommend doing research online, as there are wonderful resources out there. All our clays come from two local companies, Laguna and Aardvark. Both have websites which you can read about clays and other materials. Digging deeper, you can look at digitalfire.com, glazy.org, and ceramicartnetwork.org. All are excellent resources on the technical side.